All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. Why are you still buying a watch every 3 or 4 months? When you don't need a watch, you're not even in the public life, your circumstances have changed, you might be in a pandemic lockdown, you might have retired, no one sees you, and yet you're still buying a watch every 3 months. And I think I know why. First of all, I want to say that a lot of times in life, things change, but we keep our rituals. So a couple, for example, they have a nice gourmet dinner every night for 45 years. One of the spouses dies. The dude's a widower. He's not a gourmet dude. He's a simple eater, but he still makes gourmet food. It's a ritual that gives him comfort, and he keeps that ritual alive. For me, I like to do close readings of books and essays. I've been doing it for 35 years because I've been teaching college writing, and I'm going to retire in 2 years, but I'm still going to do close readings of books. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to probably write reviews for Amazon. And no one's going to really, a few people will care about those reviews, but I'm going to do it because it's going to keep part of my brain alive that I need to keep alive. I like to be engaged in that way. And so even though the circumstances change, I don't have to do all these close readings of books. I want to keep that ritual alive. And I think that applies to watches. There are rituals we do for self-care that connect us to the community. And to give you an example, I want to go back to my childhood in the 1960s, growing up in San Jose, California. There are things that I observed that were kind of like a precursor to YouTube videos. I'll give you an example. In the 60s, the housewives in my neighborhood would get their hair done. They'd go to a beauty salon about once a month. It was a huge deal, man. It took up the whole day. My mom's at the beauty salon. Maybe she'll be back for dinner. And then, she'd come back with this helmet on her head, all sprayed out. But it was more of a social connection. It was more of a gossip situation. There was this other thing. The Avon lady, you do Avon parties, Tupperware parties, and these were rituals of community building that were huge in the 60s. My favorite, though, we lived in this house in San Jose, huge backyard. We had every kind of fruit tree you could imagine. We had peaches, apricots, nectarines, we had a walnut tree, we had berries, blackberries, raspberries, we had chilies, hot peppers. And what would happen was, this was a Venado Court, San Jose, about 1968, 1969, tomatoes. We had too much fruit, man. It was going to rot. The birds were going to eat it, man. And what we would do is we would have to preserve it. We'd get these mason jars. And it was a huge community building ritual. It was huge. Same thing with Mexican salsa. A lot of our neighbors were from Mexico. And we made the most vibrant red salsas I've ever seen in my life. The best I ever had, all these fresh ingredients. And these were huge rituals of community building. And today, if you're doing a live watch chat channel, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same community building. The second thing I wanted to say is that we will take our private rituals and now we'll turn them into YouTube channels. So, of course, watches. Of course, watches is something that we've now made public. They're YouTube channels, but I have other rituals. I love Sumatra coffee, and I love making it in a slow drip coffee maker. Sometimes I have these swan neck vintage coffee percolators. Well, there are YouTube channels that are all coffee all the time. I love old-fashioned shaving with Gillette razors. And I love rotating the razors. I love rotating the coffee percolators, rotating the watches. I have a rotation. And there are channels just for shaving. So I love radios. There was a time 15 years ago, before I had twin daughters, where every room had about 5 radios in it. And vintage. I love those Panasonic and Sonys from the 60s, the RF 2200 Panasonic. Well, what happened was when I had baby girls, they're snapping the antennas off. I had to get rid of that. But there are YouTube channels wholly dedicated to just radios. And so what I'm trying to say is these rituals of self-care that connect us to the community, we saw them, back in the day. I mean, I saw them, and we still have them, but they're on YouTube. I don't think you want to disappear from the community. You're going to maintain that ritual, even though you don't really need another watch. I don't need another watch, but, it brings me to my second thing. We like variety. I know one of the big conversations about watches is, oh, I found my holy grail. I'm in love. Hey, you know what? I love this Willard, this Captain Willard. I think it's overpriced. I think it should be about $800, but I love it. Loving a watch, or even having a holy grail watch, won't stop you from wanting new watches. Now I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to talk about donuts. If you ask me my favorite donut, it's the apple fritter. The apple fritter is the Rolex of donuts. But that doesn't mean I'm going to get an apple fritter every time. I might want a maple bar, a chocolate custard, an old-fashioned, a bear claw, a lemon jelly. I mean, we just want variety. And so the idea that you're going to fall in love with a watch and just stop and hibernate is unrealistic. But it's fascinating to me. There's kind of a cognitive dissonance between, our public life, or our lack of a public life, and our state of not really needing a watch, but we continue with a ritual because it's a substitute for some of the things we did back in the day, man. Preserves, Tupperware parties, and so on and so forth. I think the YouTube live chat is the equivalent of going back to the beauty parlor in the 60s. Self-care and community. That is my thesis. Hey, am I onto something? Let me know what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, I'm out.